nerderotic.com.
Welcome back to the Nerdrotic channel. My name is Gary Buechler. I come to you from nerdrotic.com, and tonight we're going to take a break from our regular programming to talk about Marvel's quote-unquote fresh start. Since the news hit yesterday, they've updated that or walked it back a little bit. I'm not sure, but they said they're going to maintain their legacy number. And they're not going to do a hard reset. They're just going to put some number ones on some new issues and call this their fresh start. And from the get-go, it sounds a bit confusing. And Marvel, you can't half-ass this one. CB Slabowski came out yesterday on the Marvel YouTube channel, and I'm paraphrasing here, talked about the excitement he felt in the Marvel hallways, and he hasn't seen that excitement in years. And that's great. But while Marvel is congratulating themselves, 50 comic shops remain closed forever and don't get a fresh start. And that's disturbing. What's most disturbing is Marvel's not acknowledging this at all. You know, and none of the articles that I saw, and I didn't see it in the video. And I think some acknowledgement is proper at this point. It's way too late for an apology, but that ruins some lives. Your failed experiment that you know, and there's nothing wrong with experimenting. You try new things. That's great. That's awesome. You mix it up. You try to, replace characters. Not a great idea, but at least you tried. But it's always been temporary, and it went on way too long. And then, just the attitude for Marvel, this whole doubling down and starting fights with fans and stuff. Even if the fans started the fights, I mean, just the lack of professionalism. And the reason I'm chiming in, because this is normally out of our wheelhouse, we do TV recaps here, is I'm a former comic book retailer. I own the Comic Outpost in San Francisco from 2003 to 2013. So I wanted to give a little bit of a retailer perspective on all of this nonsense. And it really isn't, because this is something that's important to me. I want there to be an industry forever, and maybe one that I could come back and retail in again someday soon. Maybe we'll see. We'll see how things go. But Marvel, while you're breaking your arm, patting yourself on the back, there are still stores in danger of closing, and a couple of friends of mine are in danger of closing. I don't want to name them because I don't want to embarrass them. It's out there. One of them is a female-owned store down south, down in Southern California, I'll just say. And she is a wonderful person who's a great comic retailer. I was one of her first subscribers, and to see her store go breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And just your attitude, Marvel, general attitude from creators and editorial is not inspiring at all. And basically doing another Marvel Now. I mean, you even CB Slabowski even referenced it in the video, and that's what this looks like to me. Is just another Marvel Now. As a matter of fact, when I was researching this video yesterday before the furor kicked in on the internet, I Googled Marvel Reboot, and I got a couple of the newer articles about the fresh start, and then below that was all Marvel Now stuff. And I wish I had a screen capped it, because they were saying the exact same things. So if your big idea to revitalize the industry is to slap number ones on and make retailers buy 500 of one title so they can get a 501 incentive to sell for $300 to a speculator, which, God, are they even out there anymore? That's not going to work. That's not going to work at all. And you owe it to the retailers. You really do. These billions you're making, you're on your 18th MCU movie that did well. That was a very good movie, Black Panther. That those sales aren't trickling down the comic shops, partially because you don't mention comics anywhere in these movies. You don't put up the comic book locator number anywhere that anybody can see it. So yeah, there's that. There's the Disney factor, but Marvel's always been bad to retailers. To be honest with you, they've been sued successfully by retailers, and that was prior to Disney. And Disney certainly hasn't changed that. Now, what does that come from? As a retailer, I never knew. The industry is dying, and it was not doing well to begin with before all this stuff happens. And frankly, it's been completely completely stagnant. Let me give you a quick example here. I'm going to throw up some pictures here. So if we go to the 1995, February 1995, we're going to pick one title. We're going to pick Amazing Spider-Man. The sales in February of this is from Comic-Con from 1995 were 100,000 for issue number 400. The quote unquote death of Aunt May. So that was a seminal issue. And then we go to 2005. 10 years later, I own the Comic Outpost at this time. This is also from February, is Amazing Spider-Man 517, 78,620. So that is in 10 years, a drop of almost 25%. So let's go to 2017. 2017, 61,953. So that is, well, that's about 23 years, 22 years, 23 years. And the sales have pretty much, they've just inched down, but they haven't gone up. And again, we're 18 movies in on the MCU billion dollar industry. And that's what you got. There's a ton of reasons for that. I mean, again, I'll go into maybe there's a few more videos to do on this, and I'm not going to get into it now. But if we want there to be comic retailers and comic shops, which is very important for your source material for these movies to have, it's also the best marketing you can have, because people still go to comic shops, sit in there for hours, they did in mine, and talk about TV shows, movies, comics, and life, everything. And all sides came together and talked. And was it harmony all the time? No, because people, especially DC Marvel fans, would go at each other, and it was great. That was good fun. That'll always be there. There'll always be the fans arguing. But this whole attacking fans, Ghostbusters marketing technique has got to end. You get that, Star Wars? That's got to end. Yeah, they'll be paying the price in a couple years. But we're talking about comic book retailers. So Marvel, what can you do to make things better? It needs to be drastic. Okay. It cannot be slapping number ones on lenticular covers. Frankly, the only reason this changed at all was YouTube. YouTubers complaining about these comics, rightly so, and criticizing the moves that they've been making, brought this all to a head. If they hadn't have done that, I'm not saying Axel Alonso would still be around, because the sales were tanking even before that, but they sped it up. This could have gone on for another couple of years, and we would have probably ended up just getting more of the same. But now that we have the YouTube commenters, Marvel comes out with the whole fresh start thing, and you got people, a-holes like me going, it can't be just the same fresh starts that you've done before. These quote unquote fresh starts. We're on fresh start 42. Okay. You need to do something drastic. So what can you do? Make comics cheaper, find a way, bring back pulp, do something, make comic books cheaper. And, and I'm just spitballing here. How can you help a retailer directly? Here's a crazy thought. How about for a year, you make all your comics 100% returnable? Put your money where your mouth is. Your parent company is a billion-dollar company. Yeah, you might take it in the shorts a little bit. You're a clever company. You could figure out ways to work that in your advantage, and that would go a long way in helping comic book retailers. Of course, you'd have to put guidelines, and I'm just throwing it out there. There'd have to be a lot of rules put in, because it can be taken advantage of. But if you have that much confidence in your product, you make it returnable. They do that sometimes with some big titles that they know are going to sell, but I want you to do that with your lower tier titles. I want you to do it with everything, and let the comic shops build up a little bit of savings. Okay. And then you can go back to normal. And just to explain, if you don't know the comic book retailing stuff, is comic shops buy all their comic books outright. They own them. Every Tuesday night when they show up, that stuff used to belong to me. And I'll just tell you right now, the bill would hover in between, for my store where I had 300 to 400 subscribers. My bill averaged, it would float between $2,000 and $4,000 a week. That's how much I was paying for product. Okay. So I would have to generate twice that to make some money. Now the discount for comics is pretty good as far as retail merchandise. retailers get, I won't blab it out here. I'm sure most of you know anyway. It's a pretty damn good discount. It's less than the standard 30 to 35% that most merchandise goes for in most stores. So the markup is decent, but you got to think the other factors come in. Like a comic book costs the same in Kentucky than it does in San Francisco, where the dollar is completely different and the economy is completely different. So and there's really no excuse for upwards of 50 comic stores closing. This is a good economy. It's not a terrible economy. It's been worse. I mean, my shop survived 2008. That was way worse than this. Okay, so again, I can't imagine, I'm repeating myself here, but I can't imagine losing your comic store to somebody you're supposedly in partnership with. There's one thing to lose your comic store for bad decisions or an economy taking, and it's another thing to lose your comic store to, just failed experiments from your supplier. Okay, and them doubling down on it and not listening to the retailers. I've been to some of these retail summits. They can get kind of salty sometimes, but and I can only imagine what the last 4 years have been. It was good times when I owned a shop. So, and I'm not saying Marvel's this big evil entity, but I think they need to clean a little more house than they have. If you want your fresh start, then have a fresh start. Steal some talent from DC. Do what you got to do. Another thing to garner some excitement. Actually, my coworker mentioned this, and I said, I think it's a great idea. Do a DC Marvel crossover again. If you want to get fans excited about something that's huge that you would never think you would see again, and I know we won't, but do a Marvel DC crossover. That'd be awesome. That would generate so much positive press, and there is such a thing as bad press when it's too much, and it's been way too much on Marvel. Marvel, that is the worst year in their history, was 2017 by far. It makes the 90s look like the 90s. I know on the 100% returnable suggestion, and people are just going to laugh at that, especially retailers and especially Diamond. But, maybe you start there and maybe you find a happy medium with that, because I think that would do a lot to help the retailers. If you really want to help the retailers, show them some love. Okay. They deserve it. And as far as the ones that have closed Marvel, that's on you. That's on you. Now, not that they care, because I know they don't. They being the board members and stockholders. I know the people inside of Marvel do care about retailers, but it doesn't seem like it though. So be friendlier, get out there, do some customer service, big time customer service. Maybe do what DC used to do. They used to have Bob Wayne, who was a retailer rep. He used to be a retailer. Find a retailer to be a rep for you and go around the country talking to comic shop owners, getting their ideas, listening to their complaints, taking notes. Just look, at least look like you're doing something. I'm available for that job if you want. What the hell? I'll do it. I'll sacrifice it. I wouldn't even cost that much, really. But find somebody to do it and talk to them. Okay. And, comic book fans, it's not enough just to complain about it on the internet. Get your ass into your local comic store and buy some comic books. Okay. So, the YouTubers, you could take your little victory lap. You won. Good job. I watched some of you and it's very entertaining, but as far as the industry on a whole, now we need to get people buying comics. And I know some of you are actually doing your part. So I will end this one here. Thank you for allowing me this indulgence. We will get back to our regular TV recaps, and we will get into this subject way more in depth on a regular podcast. We do a podcast every Friday night, 8 p.m. live here Pacific time on the Nerdrotic channel, and you in the chat kind of guide the conversation. So me and John and Dennis will get into this in a little more depth. But thank you for listening. Shop local. Shop at your local comic store. Shop small. And for you digital guys, once in a while, go into a comic store and buy a trade or something. Just help them out. Help them out. There's a lot of good gals and guys who own comic stores who don't want to. It's a fun job. and it's a fun place to go in your comic store. Your local comic store is like a little slice of heaven. So help them out. Okay. Again, thank you for listening. That is all for tonight. May the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
You have been listening to a Nerdrotic podcast. Please subscribe.